How you doing today? My name is Roshan. I am the organizing and co-founder of the Pure Justice organization. I am here with Aris. Aris, what community do you represent?
I represent, I'm living in the North Side currently. I represent Black folks. I represent folks that are allies in solidarity with our quest towards liberation. I organize with Mutual Aid Houston and the Houston Abolitionist Collective.
Okay. Well, thank you for talking to me today. The reason we're here, we want to talk about community safety, police accountability. You know, it's been throughout the news nationwide, and for different people, community safety looks different.
Right.
So the first question I'm gonna ask you, I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into it. But in your opinion, does law enforcement keep impoverished communities safe?
No, I think by nature, it's a very reactive position. From the origins of law enforcement, it was intended to literally catch slaves. It's been about surveillance. It's been about keeping the status quo for white supremacy and for white folks and to protect property. And so by nature, that is not going to protect communities. It's not going to protect people. It's not going to protect poor folks. It's not going to protect people below the poverty line. It's not going to even protect people who are struggling to make it out. So yeah, no, I don't see law enforcement being something that is anything rooted in community. If anything, it is and like it's the antithesis to community, because it's thinking about how we can ensure property is saved and like those things are cared for, and focusing on money as opposed to actually focusing on the root of communities.
Okay, thank you for that. Would you say law enforcement is reactionary or preventative?
Yeah, definitely reactionary. It's like when something happens, that's when police are expected to come and be of support. That said, something can happen to you, something threatening or dangerous can happen, and police will still ask for more information, or will still be like, no, they have to enter the house, or we have to actually see the assault happen, or we need to put you through these very invasive tests in order to even believe what your testimony is. So even after the reaction, even after the circumstance happens, we can't even guarantee that they have our best interest in mind. So they're definitely not preventative. But to even say that they are reactionary, to even say that they are reactive is hard. They do react in situations, and that's why we have so many situations in which Black and brown folks are either shot or killed by police, are tased, are incarcerated unfairly. We have so many of those situations. So they do be reacting, but even in the spaces in which they are supposed to react in a way that is helpful towards communities, we don't see that. We don't have that trust.
Have you ever yourself been verbally or physically assaulted by law enforcement?
I haven't. I have not been personally verbally or physically assaulted. I've been at protests when they have been aggressive and have assaulted folks around me or near me. I've been in circumstances in which they've deployed tear gas, but never physically on my person.
And when people have encounters with law enforcement that may be inappropriate, or when people may need to make a complaint on law enforcement, do you think it's appropriate to report law enforcement issues to law enforcement? And is it effective?
No, we even saw with the the Independent Police Oversight Board, IPOB, that those methods are even ineffective. It does not make sense to have the police be its own accountability partner. It does not make sense to have this independent board that has no measures for what safety looks like, no measurement for what effective policing looks like, no precedent in making sure that the needs of the communities that are expressed are actually implemented. There's not been an effective way to hold police accountable at this moment. And so the fact that we are still ensuring that like we are going to police and asking them to be held accountable is not effective. So no, I don't think it that is something that has been useful at all.
Now, a lot of people, they have no idea that once you put money into law enforcement here in Texas, you cannot take it back. So whatever the budget was last year or the year before, that's what that budget is, and it can only go up. So you can continuously put money in there, but once you put it there, it's no reversing it, never. And another thing people don't know is that HPD, the Houston Police Department's budget, is $4 million away from a $1 billion with a B budget. How does that make you feel knowing that HPD is pretty much at $1 billion budget to over police or police communities that's impoverished when people are still struggling to pay their taxes and being pushed out through gentrification, or we just have housing insecurities in general, or food deserts? Like, how does it make you feel that we keep putting money into law enforcement and people have major everyday basic needs?
Yeah, I'll say it's exhausting. At the time in which I think it was June or so of 2020, when they were voting on the police budget for 2021, I think at the time it was about 967 million. And they were like, yeah, let's raise it a little bit. And thankfully, there were dozens and dozens of advocates that were looking at the police budget and really inspecting it and realizing so much of where this money goes is not towards communities, is not actually effective. And so raising the budget will do nothing if it's still not going back into communities. So I was one of those folks that was like analyzing the police budget, going to all of the meetings, and also was one of those folks that was on the call. I think it was like June 25th or so, when it was like 5 hours of public comments led to a 7-hour city council meeting of folks asking for funds to be allocated towards communities and not into the police budget. Because we knew once it's in there, like you said, it's not coming out. For the most part, it's going to be like continuously raised. It's exhausting because even as so many advocates, residents, community members of Houston recognized that they did not want this budget to be raised, it was still raised by city council members and the mayor. That is exhausting, because it's not that people don't know. People do know, people see it, people don't want it, people have advocated for not wanting it, and yet our leadership is doing it anyway. That's the most frustrating thing. Recognizing that we have this body of power that's supposed to be listening to its constituents, it's supposed to be listening to its residents, and still making choices not on their behalf, still making choices, still utilizing their power in a way that makes us feel powerless. And so that's exhausting. That makes me feel uncomfortable, makes me feel unsafe, especially when I'm still driving on roads that have potholes, especially when my neighborhood in the north side does not have effective sidewalks, does not have effective bike lanes. Whenever I see all of my libraries still struggling to have effective staffing, they don't even have like full-time employees. There's so many part-time employees working at the libraries when it could be such an effective tool. Parks not having regular maintenance. That's where this money should be going. So it is exhausting constantly seeing the issues of your neighborhood and watching money being funded and flooded into policing.
Good answer. If you could prevent law enforcement from doing anything, I mean, I'm talking about dispatching for civil matters, arresting nonviolent accusations or people with accusations of nonviolent charges, no-knock warrants, chokeholds, traffic stops, or whatever. If you can stop law enforcement from doing one thing, what would it be and why?
I think the first thing that comes to mind was one of the suggestions that Council Member Plummer made of not having police officers be deployed for nonviolent cases or for folks who have mental health issues. There is no reason for a cop with a gun to be deployed for those particular cases. Especially after hearing from one of the speakers at the Police Accountability Forum yesterday, talking about one of the primary targets of police abuse and brutality is disabled folks, and that also counts for folks struggling with mental illness that is debilitating. So I would have police officers not be those first line of call for folks dealing with mental health issues, folks with disabilities. And if I could choose another one, folks not deploying cops for things like traffic stops, for things like road situations, if it's not dire, those sort of things, we do not need to have cops on the road for that. We do not need to have cops called out and deployed for that. That's a very easy fix, but yeah, that would be my first and second choice.
What does police accountability look like to you? And do you feel like that's happening across the nation today?
Yeah, police accountability, to me, because my thing is, you can have an apology, you can have a little press conference, you can have a listening session, but at the end of the day, police accountability looks like looking at the origins of what this role and of what this practice of policing is, recognizing its history in American chattel slavery, recognizing its intentional approaches towards brutalizing and surveilling and policing Black folks in this country. And then actually sitting with that truth and recognizing the needs of these communities that are often impacted by police, and then reinvesting money back into those communities away from policing. That's what accountability looks like. Accountability looks like, oh, this is where we started. This is what we still do. And this is how we can reprimand that situation. Here's how we can give back to those communities.
Wow. Wow. My next question, you kind of went into it, but I'm still going to ask, right?
Sure.
What is the best way to create a safe community? Would it be investing in more law enforcement, or is the way to create that safe community to invest in the community's vulnerabilities?
Yeah, because I think what the problem is people want police because they have not been given other solutions for public safety. So when you ask a person, like, what makes you feel safe? Often they'll be like, I like having a place to stay. I like having food to eat. I like knowing that I'm comfortable and that I can walk the streets in my neighborhood and feel like nothing's going to happen to me. But then when you ask them, like, do you want police? They're like, yes, because we've not been given alternatives. So I would say what is most effective is offering solutions and offering alternatives to policing that community members can actually have a choice to look like, to advocate for what public safety looks like. So if I say public safety to me looks like being able to walk outside of my neighborhoods and feel safe, that for me might be having more street lights in my neighborhood, having safe sidewalks and bike lanes and et cetera for my neighborhood, having parks that are safe and don't have that are upkept and all that sort of stuff, having libraries that have proper staffing so they can either stay open longer, or we can have students not have to roam around their neighborhoods. They can actually have a place to go. That to me is what safety looks like. It's not more policing. And I think even educating people from young ages to like all the way up about what public safety can look like that doesn't involve police. It's very easy to be like, yeah, police keep us safe, so yeah, we need it. But when we talk about what actually makes us feel safe, more than likely people aren't bringing up police. More often than not, people do not have encounters with police because, one, they don't report the situations that happen to them. When there are domestic abuse cases, they're not often heard. They're not often, their cases aren't advancing in the courts. They're often made to feel small and disrespected in these sort of situations. And so even in the situations in which people want to believe in policing and believing in the court system and all that sort of stuff, it doesn't even come through. So focusing on the actual roots of the issues as opposed to focusing on law enforcement is always going to be our best bet.
What type of resources could we use outside of law enforcement to create that safe community? Like, what would you say? What does those resources look like?
Like libraries, parks, public transit. So like, and I don't know if I expressed this, but I definitely did on Twitter and Instagram. But when I was like assaulted in downtown, my first instinct wasn't let me go to the police. My first instinct, because my glasses broke, my first instinct was I can't see. I need to find how to get home, and I need to figure out like how to attend to my wounds. Those are the three things that I thought of. I did not think, oh shoot, let me find a cop, right? And even if a cop was right down the street, they would not have been able to prevent this from happening, right? I would have had to find them. They would have had to call me or whatever. I would have had to wait in line, talk to them, write down my statement, then wait for them to find the person who did it. And I would have to find them in the line. And I would have had to, by that time, none of my issues would have been solved. What I needed at the time, which thankfully I had, was reliable public transit, because I was able to take the red line down to my house. What I needed was a place to charge my phone so I could call somebody. So I could call my sister who actually helped me in this situation. And I needed resources for healthcare so I could pay for new glasses. That's what I needed. I needed those resources. I need reliable public transit. I need active healthcare. And the person who assaulted me more than likely had either a drug dependency or untreated mental illness. So I need those resources. I need folks who have drug dependencies or untreated mental illnesses to have resources so they don't have situations in which they feel like they're not put in situations in which they are assaulting folks. They are being able to address their own needs, their own issues, their own problems. They have a community that's actually invested in their health. That is more preventative than any other sort of policing sort of situation. So those are the three things that I need: healthcare, reliable public transit, and treatment towards communities and actually feeling about what they need to feel safe and cared for.
Yeah, I'm just going to touch on a few things you said, but when it rains, it storms. So when people have one problem, they find themselves quickly into another problem, into another problem. It's like a domino effect. Just was it the day before yesterday, somebody just went in my car, took a couple dollars I had in the top of the thing.
Right.
I stay in Studewood. I left my car door open.
Yeah.
My first thing wasn't to call law enforcement either. My thing was, why did they just go on my car? Now, I didn't see them. My thing was, why did they go on my car? And they took something. They took money. I said, okay, so they needed money. Or they was trying to get money. They was looking for something to sell to get money. Right. What do they need money for? I have no idea. It could be food. It could be trying to figure out how to get a room for the night. It could be drugs, whatever. Right. The domino effect of issues, and they come fast. So I get it. I didn't want anyone to go to jail because I knew that there is a need that I don't understand. And when we have certain issues, sometimes it blocks us out of opportunities.
Exactly.
And I always say one of the best and easiest ways to get somebody to do something against the law, knowing it's a strong possibility they just may get caught. You under-resource them, you squeeze them for everything, and then you over-police them. It put people in a vulnerable state of mind to where they actually start doing things that may or may not be them.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't understand why they're doing it.
Right.
But I thank you for talking to me today. It was a pleasure, and hopefully I'll see you again.
Absolutely, Roshan.